Director of Membership Services, Katie Weber, had the pleasure of talking with 2014 CWPA Hall of Fame inductee and former Naval Academy head coach, Mike Schofield.
How did you structure a typical practice? How much time was devoted to swimming, conditioning, ball work, shooting, that sort of thing?
Depending on the time of the year, we would stress the conditioning and the basic fundamentals a little more at the beginning of the season, and then as the season progressed, guys got in a little better shape. We would try to kind of transition to making every workout have some connection to an aspect of the game, where we do our conditioning through the drills and through the game situations that we were setting up for the team. And I think that was the biggest transition for me. Was I started out doing a whole lot of just plain old swim coach type conditioning. I moved away from that as time went on and tried to incorporate the aspects of the game into what we were doing. We would invariably do a lot of leg work, leg support, movement, changing directions. Our goalie coach, Mladen Stanicic, who's now our head coach at Navy, ran a lot of that stuff and did a great job with it.
What would you say your favorite conditioning drill is?
We did a drill all the time where we'd break the group up into 3 separate teams, and we'd run what we call a 3-way counterattack drill, and we'd go for hours, starting with 2-on-2, working our way up to 6-on-6, and we would keep score, take pride in which teams were being successful, which group was maybe getting their butts kicked that day, and make it as much of a game situation as we could.
And then what was your favorite swim set to give the kids?
Pays to be a winner. We would do this sometimes at the beginning of practice, sometimes at the end, sometimes both, where just short sprints, and we'd maybe go 20 yards or 40 yards, sometimes up to 80 yards, and the whole team would jump in at the same time, and whoever won gets out. And as soon as you win, the drill's over. But if you don't win, you just keep sprinting.
And you usually had a pretty big roster down there, so if you're the last person to win, you're in trouble, right?
Yep. And I used to, at least I tried to temper that a little bit. If we had some guys that weren't real fast and would struggle, I would kind of make sure I took them aside and let them know that this is going to be tough on you, and you're going to be doing a lot more swimming than some other people. But in the long run, it's going to help you. You're going to get better, and just hang in there. I understand you might not be winning for a number of different repetitions, but just hang in there. We'll work our way down there, and whenever we got to the last group, I always made sure that we wouldn't have one guy left. We'd have 3 or 4 guys left, and they'd all be done at the same time. So, but I think it did help our top guys kind of excel, and our less experienced, less fit guys develop some conditioning and some fitness that they really needed.
What would the team say that their favorite drill or swim set is? Because I bet most of them would not say that one was their favorite.
Although, if you were real fast, that was your favorite drill. We used to do a little thing from time to time called goalie wars, where we'd put half the group at one end and half the group at the other, and only let them go out to the 5-meter line, and just 10 guys at one end, 10 guys at the other, all of them with the ball, seeing if they could score at the other end. And it's just kind of a free for all and kind of a icebreaker for everybody. They enjoyed that.
That sounds fun.
I'm sure we weren't the only ones that played that goalie war game.
How important is scouting your upcoming opponents? And then what do you typically focus on when you're watching another team play?
I think it's huge, especially if you're in a conference. And, we would, from time to time, we would see teams 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 times a year. So you definitely want to know what your opponent can do. we would focus, really from day one at the beginning of the season on kind of developing a book on our opponents, particularly the ones that we knew we were going to contend with at the end of the year. We would certainly get to know their roster, identify their key personnel, strengths and weaknesses, and then try to find some matchups that worked for us that we felt would be favorable in the games.
What type of strategy would you use on offense if you don't have a really strong 2-meter player?
That's a great question, and we had some years where that was the case with our program. I think the first thing you want to do is, short of a dominant center, identify 1 or 2, maybe 3 matchups where some of your players who could post up, not necessarily for multiple possessions in a row, but find a strong driver who can post up in front of the goal and try to exploit a matchup against a weaker defender from the other team. You can run some crossing action or picks to maybe create a switch where one of your stronger post-up drivers is matched up with a weaker defender. I think that's key. Being able to isolate and clear out space on one side of the goal or the other. I'll say, for example, driving to what we call the 2-post on the left side of the goal and clearing out that side, or if you have a lefty that's able to drive into the 3-post on the right side of the goal and isolate your left-hander there. I think also the more you can rely on a fast break and accelerating the pace of the game so that maybe you don't ever have to, or that you limit the number of possessions where you have to come down and play 6-on-6. Try to create situations where you're pushing the pace a little bit, getting 1-on-nobodies or 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3, so we don't have to get to that point where all 6 defenders are locked and loaded on your offense.
What are 3 important factors for a successful defense?
Well, I wrote that down, Katie. Number 1, if you possibly can find yourself a great goalie, that's by far number 1, is to get yourself a great goalie.
Yeah, I always hope.
And he or she needs to run the team at the defensive end, and they can also have a big impact at the other end as well. But communication from the goal out to the 6 field players, and having that goalie as the anchor of your defense. They need to be vocal, and the guys that work in front of him or her need to do what they're told because the goalie's in charge. Number 2, and I think we worked on this as much as anybody, and that's to stress really, really good positioning in terms of where you are related to the man you're guarding, where the ball is, how far, how close he is to the goal, and maintaining the best possible defensive position before you get in trouble or before the ball comes to your player. And then equally important, if you happen to lose position or the offensive player gets an advantage, what you can do to regain good position without getting yourself excluded. So defensive positioning, both individual and as a team, and then working together within your system to do that. I think, again, whether you're pressing or whether you're in a zone or whether you're mixing the two, the teamwork, the communication, the helping each other when one player gets burned, knowing where to help, when to help, how to help, and communicating as a group together. So great goalie, emphasize positioning at all times, and then super teamwork whenever possible to work together and at least to say, you know, if a fire gets started, put it out before the ball ends up in the goal.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.